Emotionally self-sufficient people are often described as strong, grounded, or unusually mature. They tend to stay calm in situations that overwhelm others, they handle problems quietly, and they rarely seek reassurance. From the outside, this looks like confidence and stability. And in many cases, it truly is. But emotional self-sufficiency often shares a hidden pattern that is rarely examined, not because it is dramatic or pathological, but because it blends so easily into what society rewards and praises. Emotional self-sufficiency is not simply independence. Independence is about action. Emotional self-sufficiency is about regulation. It means that when emotional stress arises, the default response is to handle it internally. Feelings are processed privately. Distress is contained rather than expressed. Resolution happens alone. Support from others is not rejected outright, but it is not expected, and it is rarely sought. For many people, this pattern does not develop in adulthood. It forms much earlier, often before there is language to describe it. At some point in development, relying on others emotionally did not feel consistent. This does not require overt neglect, conflict, or trauma. Sometimes emotional availability was simply uneven. Sometimes adults were physically present, but emotionally preoccupied. Sometimes a child learned that expressing distress did not change much, or that it created inconvenience rather than comfort. In these environments, the nervous system adapts quietly. It learns that self-regulation is more reliable than waiting for external support. Over time, this becomes efficient. Emotional needs are reduced, expression becomes more controlled, and reliance on others gradually fades into the background. This adaptation is not a conscious choice. It is not a belief system. It is a pattern reinforced by repetition. Each time a person successfully regulates themselves without help, the system strengthens. By adulthood, emotional self-sufficiency feels natural. You do not experience yourself as unsupported. You experience yourself as capable. You manage your reactions internally. You think through your emotions. You regain equilibrium without involving others. Because this works, it becomes part of identity rather than something you notice. For many emotionally self-sufficient people, confidence becomes synonymous with safety. If you can handle your inner world alone, nothing escalates, nothing overwhelms, nothing spills outward. Control becomes a stabilizing force. This does not mean emotions are suppressed or ignored. Often, they are deeply understood. They are named, analyzed, and contextualized, but they are rarely shared in real time. Expression is delayed until feelings are already contained, if it happens at all. This pattern is often socially rewarded. Emotionally self-sufficient people are easy to be around. They do not create drama. They do not burden others with emotional intensity. They remain composed in crises. They are dependable. Because of this, others may rely on them more than they realize. They become listeners, stabilizers, quiet supports in their families, friendships, and workplaces. Their ability to hold emotional weight without visible strain makes them appear resilient. The cost of this pattern is subtle, which is why it often goes unnoticed. When you always carry your emotional experiences alone, connection can become asymmetrical. You may offer presence and understanding freely while rarely asking for the same in return. Not because you are withholding and not because you distrust others, but because needing support does not feel natural. It may not even occur to you as an option. Over time, this can create a sense of distance that is difficult to articulate. You may feel close to people while remaining internally separate, involved, but not fully accompanied. In relationships, this often shows up as self-containment. You may share thoughts, observations, and insights more easily than vulnerability. You may communicate clearly while still keeping emotional processing private. Partners and friends can sense depth but not access, closeness without full entry. This can be confusing for others. Some may interpret it as emotional unavailability. Others may assume you simply do not need much. Both interpretations miss the underlying reality. Emotionally self-sufficient people do have emotional needs. They are simply accustomed to meeting them alone. Letting someone else provide emotional support can feel oddly risky, not because of fear of rejection or betrayal, but because it disrupts a long-established internal system. If you have always been the one who regulates, leaning on someone else can feel destabilizing, even when that person is trustworthy. Depending on another introduces uncertainty into a system that has been carefully stabilized through self-reliance. The nervous system resists this, not out of fear, but out of habit. It is important to understand what this pattern does not mean. It does not mean you are emotionally closed, cold, or disconnected. It does not mean you lack depth or sensitivity. It does not mean your upbringing was overtly harmful. And it does not mean there is something to fix. Emotional self-sufficiency is an adaptation that once served a clear purpose. It reduced friction. It increased predictability. It worked. Awareness changes how this pattern operates. When emotional self-sufficiency is unconscious, it feels absolute. When it becomes visible, it becomes flexible. You may begin to notice moments when carrying everything alone is genuinely helpful, and moments when it is simply automatic. You may realize that support does not threaten competence. It does not erase strength. It adds an option that was not previously available. Integration is not about becoming dependent or expressive in ways that feel unnatural. It is about restoring choice, choosing when to regulate internally and when to allow shared processing, choosing when solitude is stabilizing and when connection would reduce unnecessary strain. This does not diminish emotional self-sufficiency. It contextualizes it. If this description resonates, it does not mean something is missing in you. It means you learned early on how to stand on your own emotionally. You developed a system that kept you steady and functional. Understanding that pattern is not about undoing it. It is about finally seeing it clearly and allowing it to serve you rather than silently define you.